What does it take to drive a man crazy? Probably receiving the head of the love of his life in a cooler and a video of the execution of his 2 sons at the hands of enemy hitmen. This is not part of a horror story. These are facts from the life of Hector El Güero Palma, one of the founders of the Sinaloa cartel. In this installment, we will learn about the tragedies that marked this criminal, but also his savage revenge, which ended up affecting dozens of innocent people. Get ready to delve into one of the most shocking stories we have told at Military Might. We warn you that it is not suitable for sensitive stomachs. Hector Luis Palma Salazar, better known as El Güero for his blonde hair and blue eyes, was born in April 1953 in La Noria de Abajo, in the municipality of Mocorito, Sinaloa. He only studied primary school due to his family's poverty, so from a young age he showed a deep rejection of authority. Finally, crime came into his life through theft. As a teenager, Palma earned his money by stealing cars and then selling the parts to illegal workshops. His audacity and robberies caught the attention of Miguel Angel Felix Gallardo, the largest cocaine and marijuana drug trafficker in Mexico in the 1970s as leader of the Guadalajara cartel. Gallardo was the one who hired him as a hitman to eliminate the competition. Salazar was a ruthless and efficient assassin, so soon he was in charge of cocaine smuggling in Sonora, one of the most important areas in the entire country. It was then that he met his future partner, a young Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, who also worked for Felix Gallardo. Soon, El Chapo and El Güero became friends due to their similarity in age and long-term objectives. In 1989, the fall of several Guadalajara cartel bosses and the subsequent dismantling of several of its cells only increased the influence of Guzman and Palma. The business was open to whoever decided to take it, and they were at the right time and place. The men joined forces and, together with Ismael El Mayo Zambada, gave rise to the Sinaloa cartel, taking over the routes that were previously owned by Miguel Ángel Félix Gallardo.
O sea, él habría sido el estratega de esa separación con los Arellano Félix, de ese nacimiento de un poder ubicado allá en Sinaloa.
Eso es parte del mito del Güero Palma.
From a simple hitman, El Güero Palma quickly rose to become the planner of drug trafficking between Sonora and the United States. He was one of the main people responsible for introducing tons of cocaine and other narcotics into the North American country during the 80s, causing an unprecedented boom in the business. However, when everything seemed to be going well, the most savage blow that Palma could imagine came. The first of many tragedies that marked the existence of this unfortunate boss. From its birth, the Sinaloa Front went to war with gangs and pre-existing groups, among them the men loyal to Miguel Ángel Félix Gallardo. The former head of Guadalajara joined forces with the Arellano Félix brothers, main leaders of the Tijuana cartel. The objective was to eliminate the Sinaloa Front, the new boys in the game, from the map. It is because of this constant danger that El Güero recruited the best assassins in the business to serve in his ranks. In this process, he crossed paths with Rafael Clavel Moreno, a Venezuelan who quickly became Palma's confidant. This would be a mistake that the Mexican boss would regret for the rest of his life. While El Güero watched that everything went well on the routes recently controlled by the Sinaloa cartel, Clavel Moreno slowly got closer to his wife, Guadalupe Lejía, until he became her lover. The infatuation continued to transform into an extramarital affair, but what she didn't know was that this mysterious man was not a simple employee of her husband. He was a hitman sent specifically to infiltrate and carry out a brutal plan. All this was orchestrated by Miguel Félix Gallardo and the leaders of the Tijuana cartel, who were confident that after a successful hit, they could dismantle the Sinaloa competition. That's how Rafael Clavel Moreno convinced Guadalupe Lejía to leave her husband and flee with him to the United States. She accepted, stole $2 million, and they set off on their journey, turning their backs on El Güero Palma. During the journey, everything went as normal as it seemed. The children did not understand much, but they were used to surprise plans, considering their father's job. What neither they nor their mother imagined was that they were traveling with their executioner. When they arrived in the city of San Francisco, Clavel Moreno slit Lehia's throat in a hotel room. The massacre was quick. The Venezuelan was a professional in the art of eliminating people. As for the children, he kept them alive for a few more days. He had much darker plans for them. Not content with taking his family from him, Gallardo and the Arellano Felix family sent Palma the head of his beloved in a cooler. The Sinaloa boss was consumed by hate and sadness, but his horror story still needed a final chapter, a dark epilogue that shows the level of evil that the cartels handle. It may be the most macabre personal attack ever carried out by the Mexican criminal world. After a week, the hitman Rafael Clavel Moreno sent El Güero a grotesque video in which he showed how he threw the body of his two children, Natalie, 4 years old, and Hector, 5, from the Puente de la Concordia in Venezuela. Can you imagine the impact he received when he saw those images taken from hell itself? While drug trafficking is a dangerous business, and those who enter it already know what kind of weapons they are playing with, the punishment that fell on this man seems morbidly excessive, even for the gruesome world they inhabit. Little by little, the few moral rules that governed the activities of organized crime were erased to give way to the brutality we know today. Hector Palma's first reaction was to grieve. There's not much else to do when, from one day to the next, you lose all the people you ever loved. El Güero built a mausoleum for his family with an estimated value of $420,000. The imposing and luxurious building is located in the Jardines del Humaya Cemetery in Culiacan, Sinaloa. Far from calming the conflict between the Sinaloa cartel, the Arellano Felix, and Miguel Angel Felix Gallardo, that massacre was like pouring gasoline on a fire to try to put it out. In revenge, Palma ordered the arrest of 9 friends and relatives of Miguel Felix Gallardo. The result was an unprecedented massacre. Week after week, authorities found human remains scattered in different areas of the country. All the bodies had multiple blows, skull fractures, and ruptured viscera. Before they died, they had been tortured. Their last hours of life were filled with unimaginable pain and torment. It was the price to pay for having messed with what Palma loved most. As we anticipated, this war without quarter was the beginning of the change in the code among drug traffickers of not attacking families. Palma's revenge included numerous people who had a direct or indirect role in his personal tragedy: a lawyer from the Tijuana cartel, 3 Venezuelan accomplices of the hitman Rafael Clavel Moreno, and 9 relatives of Felix Gallardo and the Arellano Felix clan. When reviewing the multiple versions of this massacre, it is said that among the murdered people were Felix Gallardo's mother-in-law and a 21-year-old cousin of one of those involved. The capture of the material author of the murder of Palma's children, that mysterious Venezuelan hitman, was a more complicated matter. The distance and the low profile of the perpetrator made El Güero have to invest thousands of dollars to catch Rafael. The Mexican drug trafficker was motivated by hatred and bloodlust, so he did not stop until he found the person who annihilated his children and his beloved wife. Finally, after several months on the run from justice and his enemies, Rafael Clavel Moreno was caught by Venezuelan authorities and put behind bars for the crime of murdering minors. But if you think that prison was a limit to prevent the Sinaloa boss from taking revenge, you are very wrong. Palma had enough time to plan a complete revenge, on par with the pain he felt when he received the cooler with his wife's head. El Güero was clear in his orders. Even though they were minors, Rafael Clavel Moreno's 3 children would be murdered in cold blood and dismembered. A kind of combination of the murder of his wife and children. They say that the photos were so terrible that no one except him saw them. During his stay in prison, the Venezuelan hitman was visited by friends from Sinaloa who took it upon themselves to convey Palma's affectionate greetings to him. Then Clavel Moreno appeared dead in his cell under very strange circumstances, but nobody cared enough to investigate what had happened. Deep down, even the Venezuelan police knew that the crime had the signature of a Mexican vendetta. Unfortunately, things did not end there. The most sinister thing is that during the hunt carried out by El Güero, not only people related to drug trafficking died, but also human rights activists and journalists who were investigating the murders. Maddened by maximizing his revenge, the Sinaloa native hired a group of 4 judicial police officers in 1990 to kill the activist Norma Corona, who was reporting the news regarding the strange deaths of 3 lawyers who, unfortunately, had once known the Venezuelan Rafael Clavel Moreno. Norma Corona was a brave lawyer. In the litigation community, she was known for her fierce defense of victims of violence, even if the other side was occupied by police officers or drug lords. She believed that her 3 colleagues had been detained by corrupt officers, kidnapped, tortured, and killed as part of the war in the Mexican Pacific, so she decided to represent their families and find the culprits. That decision was fatal. Norma was shot to death inside her vehicle on May 21, 1990 in Culiacan. To this day, this remains one of Mexico's best-known unsolved crimes, although Palma's name is always mentioned.
Oscar, ya vuelve el Güero Palma, directamente es él el responsable del asesinato de Norma Corona.
Está en el expediente, ¿no? Porque el responsable se mencionó en su tiempo también al comandante González Treviño de la PCR, Policía Judicial Federal, y también se mencionaba obviamente a Hector Palma Salazar.
The murder was the first of many attacks targeting activists. According to a count by the TDT Network, a human rights organization, at least 325 workers related to this field have been murdered in Mexico from 2001 to 2023. It is a risky profession in a country controlled by terrorist groups willing to do anything. Now, let's return to Palma's adventures. On June 23, 1995, El Güero took off from Ciudad Obregón bound for Toluca to attend a colleague's wedding. He was unable to land at his original destination because the army had surrounded the airfield. They had received accurate information about the drug trafficker's agenda and were planning to capture him that same day. Palma's Learjet headed for Zacatecas, but was unable to land there either because of the presence of uniformed officers. After escaping for several hours, the fuel ran out and the aircraft crashed on the border between Jalisco and Nayarit. Badly wounded, his men took El Güero to a safe house where he was arrested the next day. His capture was national news. He was part of that brutal golden generation of drug trafficking that emerged in the mid-80s and forged the business by fire. Among the most impressive details of that arrest was Palma's golden pistol, which caught the attention of the police involved in the case. The abundance of evidence in the drug trafficker's spectacular flight by air resulted in a fairly quick judicial process. Within a few months, he was behind bars in his homeland. After serving the first part of his sentence, Palma was extradited to the United States in 2007, where he remained for almost 10 years. Once his pending accounts on Uncle Sam's soil were settled, the criminal was returned to the Mexican authorities in 2016.
Hector Luis Palma Salazar, mejor conocido como el Güero Palma, ya se encuentra en México. Fue entregado por agentes de inmigración estadounidense a autoridades de la Fiscalía Mexicana, quienes lo recibieron en el puente fronterizo de Matamoros, en Tamaulipas.
Since then, he has appealed against the sentence he received in Mexico in the hope of regaining his freedom, although it is unlikely that he will succeed. Palma has numerous pending judicial proceedings for really serious crimes for which he has not yet paid. His criminal record is so long that if he is exonerated of any of the charges already examined, that would not mean that he can walk the streets again. There is still a lot of blood in his name. The most incredible thing is that, after several decades in prison and with so much water under the river, the family of this drug lord continues to be the subject of savage tragedies. In February 2021, the Attorney General's office confirmed horrendous news: the discovery of the bodies of Maria Jimena Palma Romero and Cynthia Mercedes Romero Verdugo. According to the investigations, they were kidnapped by 4 people in Ciudad Obregón, Sonora, in December 2020. Since then, they had been reported missing.
Acabamos de encontrar una fosa con, al parecer, 2 mujeres. Son 2 mujeres, una pelo castaño, una más pelo claro, entre rubio, rojizo. Lo que puedo adelantarles es que una de ellas, al parecer, trae uñas de color verde.
The women were brutally riddled with bullets with signs of physical violence and torture prior to death. In addition to their blood ties, they were the sister-in-law and niece of El Güero Palma, who from his cell continued to mourn deaths. In this way, the family tragedy of the drug trafficker was completed, whose inner circle was annihilated at the hands of rival hitmen. In this case, it is unknown who was the perpetrator of the attack, but it has all the characteristic marks of a criminal execution. In mid-2023, a judge in Mexico ordered the release of Hector El Güero Palma, but the Attorney General's office executed a new arrest warrant against the drug trafficker. At that time, he was sought to be charged with a series of crimes for which he had not yet answered, including cases of qualified homicide of police officers and other representatives of the law. During the 80s and 90s, the murder of uniformed officers was a daily occurrence within the activities of the Sinaloa cartel. The court order forced El Güero, then a 63-year-old man, to remain behind bars in the maximum security prison of Altiplano. The life of Hector El Güero Palma is full of violence and pain. As a child, he learned what poverty and marginality were. As a teenager, the poisonous honey of crime. As an adult, he received the last and most painful of his lessons. The price to pay for a life of crime can be too high. Such adventures inspired songs and, of course, ensured his inclusion among the characters of various series about drug traffickers. Without a doubt, his tragic story is unique in the world of organized crime. Thus, we come to the end of the video. If you want to continue learning about the most shocking biographies and facts about Mexican crime, we invite you to subscribe to our channel and activate notifications. This way, you can stay up to date with each of our news. Without further ado, we say goodbye until the next installment of Military Might. Thank you for joining us.